So, what went wrong with the Ghostbusters movie, aside from absolutely everything, like literally every single thing? You know what, I wanna talk about this. I know the movie is basically dead, but I've basically compiled a list of every single possible thing that went wrong with this production that I could remember in chronological order, and it's a lot. So really, let's really get into this. Okay, so right from the bat, before the movie even starts, what goes wrong? Leaks. A bunch of emails get leaked by Korean hackers, and what they reveal is absolutely brilliant. First of all, one of the top dogs of Sony, Amy Pascal, can't spell, doesn't know how caps locks works, and is just basically very dumb. She contacts Paul Feig and decides that he's going to head the new Ghostbusters reboot. Of course, they're both feminists, sort of. Well, Amy claims to be a feminist, but when a bunch of female actresses complained that they're getting underpaid, she was quoted as saying that they should negotiate harder, which is basically what MRAs tell them. So Paul Feig, or Feig, whatever his name is, and Amy Pascal decide that he's going to head this movie, he's going to direct it, and they're basically going to push out Ivan Reitman, who basically contractually gets to decide who the director is going to be. And so they just basically stonewall him until he just passively goes away. So what does Paul have in store for this movie? Some of the dumbest shit ever. Dance scenes, just basically a bunch of nonsense. Stuff no one wants to see, ghost aliens, just complete fucking crap. And the best part of this is that some people speculate, and I'm amongst them, that his entire desire to do the movie his way, quote unquote, and to push out Ivan Reitman so he doesn't stick his nose in it, is because he had a rejected script that no one liked about female superheroes called, get this, glass ceiling. So he pushed the script around and basically no one wanted it. It was a crappy script. So he said, you know what, I'm just basically gonna take this movie that has fallen into my lap and I'm going to make that the new glass ceiling. I'm just gonna adapt this script into a Ghostbusters script so that no one can take my stupid crap away. So the minute he gets the script, he just pounces at famous sort of feminists, quote unquote, that he thought would be receptive to his stupid movie, and immediately goes for people who are way beyond his reach. He goes for Amy Schumer, Jennifer Lawrence, and what's her name, Watson, the girl from the Harry Potter movies. And you know, even though her career is basically dying at this point, she took a quote-unquote year off to focus on feminism, which is what actors say when they aren't getting any good roles. They take a year off to do something else instead of acting. All three of them rejected him. Like, no one wanted to be in this movie, so he settled for for his cast of misfits. Who did he get? He got fucking Kristen Wiig, who he always works with because he fucking has a crush on her. That's what I think, at least. You know what? I'm drawing a blank. These actresses are so forgettable. I can barely remember the second one. And then he got Gorilla Jones, the woman who is so bad at being funny that she once quit stand-up comedy for 3 years after getting booed off stage, opening for, I think, Jamie Foxx. I mean, if people think that Jamie Foxx is funny and you're less funny by comparison, then you've already failed. So that's the cast, and like, compare them to the cast of the original movie. Who did you have there? You had there Dan Aykroyd, you had Bill Murray. I mean, you had some of the biggest comedy stars in history, and Ernie Hudson, because it was supposed to be Eddie Murphy, but he said no, so they got Ernie Hudson. But okay, he was good. He was still good. By comparison, two of the actresses in this movie, Leslie Jones and Kate McKinnon, are so unimportant, so unknown, that when the movie came out, their Wikipedia pages still didn't have a picture of them. No one cares about these girls. They didn't even bother to edit their stupid Wikipedia page. I mean, it probably still doesn't have a fucking picture. I'll have to check. But, so what else did the emails reveal? Well, they revealed that the only reason Bill Murray agreed to be in this movie is because they threatened to sue him. Like, for years, he's been not allowing this reboot to happen by refusing to get in, to be in this movie. So everyone sort of respected because it's Bill Murray. So people said, look, it's Bill Murray, can do whatever he wants. Not Paul Feig, not Amy Pascal. They went, you know what, we'll just fucking sue him. We'll sue him until he agrees, and Bill Murray caved, and you can tell by his face in some of the interviews where he does this fake laughter at unfunny clips of the movie that he does not want to be there. I mean, his character dies, and I'm like almost 100% sure that he just insisted on it so he doesn't have to be in this movie again. Like, he was like, okay, I'll be in your movie, but whatever, my character has to get killed. So if you make the stupid sequel that you're promised to make, and probably won't happen now, that I won't have to be in this movie again, okay? Kill my character. So, moving on from that, let's continue, okay? Let's get into more leaks, okay? Because the movie is still not out, but shit is still hitting the fan, okay? Shit is still going wrong because more leaks come out by some guy on 4chan who apparently works at the movie, and later all of this was verified. Well, a big part of this was verified, and you can sort of speculate from that everything he said was true, because he basically laid out the entire plot of the movie, and that turned out to actually be the plot. And later someone on Reddit did the same thing, like people who worked there did not like this movie, probably because they said that Paul Feig is a fucking asshole. So what the leaks revealed? That the entire movie is a shit show, that Paul Feig is basically walking around the lot crying because it's such a fucking failure, that the script is bad, no one understands the script, that the entire cast is in sort of a clash of egos, and they're basically fighting each other over who gets more lines, and they were forced to sign additional NDAs to keep them from exposing what a horrible mess this movie is. Just, they're not allowed to talk about the movie unless it's in a positive way, okay? And you can sort of tell that the studio knew that this was a shit show because they had no faith in this movie, and you can tell by the way they handled it. They didn't start the ad campaign for this movie until way late. Like, a movie like this that was supposed to be a huge hit, a tentpole movie for this company, they did not bother to advertise it. At least at first, they didn't bother to advertise it at all. They just went, let's not waste money on ads for this thing, because it's Ghostbusters. It's a bad movie, and let's hope it makes enough of the money back so it's not a huge loss. Let's not sink more of our money into this. But that's not it, because not only did they not bother to advertise this, they cut the budget. What's his name? Paul Rothman? God, I forget his name, but he cut like 10 million from the fucking budget because he saw, like, it was one of his only good decisions ever. So what else? The studio basically put the movie out in a week where it's running against no other movies. It came out I think July 15, and the only other sort of big movie was something with Bryan Cranston, which also nobody watched. And in spite of this, it still opened second, and it opened second against a movie that no one cared about. The only reason I know about the movie The Secret Life of Pets is because Ghostbusters lost to it. Okay? No one cared about this movie, and people care about that movie even less. Okay? So, what else did the studio do? Embargo reviews. Keep reviewers who watched this movie early from telling everyone how bad it is. Only reviewers they knew would give a good score. Those are the only ones who were allowed to talk about it. They kept extending the embargo. Just no. Don't let anyone know. Just hope that as many people as possible watch this movie before everyone realizes it's bad, and then allow reviews to come out. Just embargo everything quick. Don't let the word get out, okay? And you know, at the end they realized that this tactic won't work because they hoped that by name recognition alone, the movie would at least make its budget back, make a small profit, anything. And then they realized it's such a fucking mess that everyone already hates it before it even came out. And so right at the end, they made a huge advertising push, just poured money into it in hopes that maybe they can keep it from being a giant bust. And you know, this is all still before the movie is even out. So let's talk trailers, because that's when the party really began. Trailer comes out, everyone hates it. It looks like crap. Everyone thinks it looks stupid. It becomes the most disliked trailer on YouTube. It eventually hits 1 million dislikes. And you know what else? I honestly believe that at some point Sony attempted to use bots, automated bots, to give the trailer likes. Like a friend of mine who's good with statistics sort of analyzed it and made a graph. I'll show it to you, where you can sort of see that there's a moment here where there's a huge surge in likes for this trailer, and this is unrealistic. This does not happen naturally. I think Sony paid for bots, hoping that the sort of meme of liking this trailer would catch on and develop organically the way that disliking it has, and it just sort of will continue and save the ratio somehow, but it doesn't work because you can see right here, huge drop. The minute they stop paying for bots, it just kind of crashes. I mean, it could have been actual people, but it doesn't seem realistic. It looks like bots. So more trailers come out, they try to fix them, and it just gets worse. It just gets dumber. The very first line of the trailer is a mistake. 30 years ago, New York was saved by 4 scientists. Not all 4 of them were scientists, and if it's a reboot or a remake or whatever, then it didn't happen. It doesn't make sense. It didn't happen 30 years ago because the first movie didn't happen, okay? So at this point, Sony decides they need to sort of craft a narrative around this. They need to make this look like everyone who hates this is a sexist, a misogynist basically. And they decide, and I'll explain why I'm sure that this is not just speculation in a moment. They decide to start deleting comments that make sense and just logically and rationally explain why this trailer looks like shit, and only leave comments made by stupid trolls who are trying to piss off I don't know who by leaving hate comments under the trailer. Like I'm not sure what they were trying to do, except like, I don't know, promote the movie by helping Sony make it look like everyone who hates is an idiot. Like, I mean, just going to the trailer and posting nigger, you're basically helping Sony. You're an idiot. But why do I think that Sony is did this? Because understand this, when you get a bunch of comments and they look like shit, then YouTube automatically sort of filters out comments that its automated system thinks might be spam, and allows you to decide if you want to publish them or not. So comments that were positive and logical disappeared, and comments that were hateful got through. How did this happen? Well, comments that are very long or filled with profanity will all get sent to this trash bin. But for some of them to still pop up and for others not to, that means that an actual person from Sony had to sit there and just manually go through all these comments and decide what to keep and what not to keep. Like, I am almost 100% sure that Sony literally had like an intern sitting there and just told them, listen, if a comment is racist and stupid, let it in. Just open the floodgates, okay? If a comment is rational and is made by a woman, because that makes us look really bad, fucking nix it, get rid of it, just in the trash right now. So what were the actual complaints about the trailer? Well, I mean, it looks stupid, the CGI is ugly, it gets like, it's like a minute long, and it still gets a bunch of lore about the movie's wrong. The only black character is a racist caricature. It's not funny. The jokes are dumb. The jokes are childish. Nobody likes remakes and prequels and sequels. Just make something original. Everyone wants new original movies. Everyone is sick of it, and it's a shit show. It was bad. So what happens next? Paul Feig just proves to everyone what a huge man-child he is, and goes ape shit on Twitter. He literally like tries to act like a tough guy on the internet. He's like, hey, don't mess with my actresses or else you'll have to deal with me. What will you do, you fucking midget in a suit? Jesus Christ, no one is intimidated by you, Paul. You wear gay suits and colorful socks, and you're like a foot tall. Just shut up. And then Leslie Jones freaks out because the very people this movie was trying to pander to attack it. Because Leslie Jones in this movie, at least in the trailer, looks like an insulting stereotype, and she's the only non-scientist. I mean, that sort of fits with the first movie. That makes sense. Like, not exactly, but sort of like someone who watched the movie once, which I think is what Paul Feig did, and just sort of dozed off like midway through it and just tried to copy it. That's what he'd do. Make the only black character not a scientist, but not understand what Hudson's character was in the previous movie. That's what they would do. But the point is, all the social justice warriors, all the crazy people on Twitter basically just started attacking Leslie Jones via Twitter, and it was just hilarious. Like, Paul Feig is desperately trying to lick these people's nuts, and they attack him. They just go right for the throat and right for Leslie Jones. But what else happened? Bad promotion. Just comically bad promotion. Just mistake after mistake. And some of this also happened before the movie was even out, and it was just a hilarious failure because they decided to send the girls out to a hospital filled with dying children to promote the movie. Okay? These kids don't know these actresses. They don't care about these actresses. Nobody knows these actresses. Why did they think dying kids would want to meet these people on their deathbeds? They're not John Cena, okay? These kids looked at them and thought, why are these trash ladies here? Why are these fat women in trash man suits here at the hospital? How's this supposed to cheer me up? There's these just hilarious pictures of kids like literally dying. Like they're just, these kids are probably dead. The kids in the pictures are dead by now, and you can see on their faces they don't know who these women are or why they're there, and they just want to be left alone. And the best thing is, the guy who came with them is wearing this sort of, I mean, you can't tell, it's not a very clear picture, but it's sort of a Jesus Hitler skeleton t-shirt. Like, I'm not sure what exactly it was, but I saw some religious iconography and some death symbols. And is this what you wanna wear when you go to meet some cancer-ridden children? Was that the best wardrobe choice? Random black guy that I don't recognize? Never mind. Okay, one disaster passed. I mean, they won't make a stupid mistake like that again, right? Wrong. Okay, wrong. They do another sort of fan day where they bring a bunch of idiots, dress them up as Ghostbusters, and let them watch the movie, and then film it. I mean, first they film Paul Feig attacking his own audience, but I mean, I have a feeling Paul was personally in charge of all the publicity here, because he just makes the same mistakes over and over. But they either screened the crowd to make sure only people who would like this movie would watch the early screening, or just screened the actual comments of the people to make sure all the people who saw it and thought it was shit would not show up in this promotional video. But I mean, it was hilarious because you see this fat, baldy, bearded guy just burst into tears, just cry over how good this movie is, and it's just, oh my god, it's so bad, it's so gay. I'm sorry, did I say gay? I'm sorry, I meant it was so retarded. I don't want to be offensive, okay? I didn't mean to be homophobic. It was retarded, not gay. Gaily retarded. Okay, let's move on, okay? Let's move the fuck on. So the movie comes out. After all this shit, the much anticipated movie comes out, and just before it comes out, somebody breaks the embargo and just leaves the most devastating review of this movie I have ever seen. And you know, it gets some traction, but anyways, at this point, Sony knows this is gonna fail, and they are in a rush to make as much money as they can from this movie before everyone realizes it's a flop and doesn't bother to show up, before the movie theaters start fucking dropping it. So the movie comes out and the toys are already being sold at clearance rates. Like, you can see some news outlets reported that the toys were overselling, that the movie was underselling maybe, but the toys, those were making a real profit. No, the toys were being sold, they're being basically handed out for free. Just take them. We know that if people don't buy them now, it'll lie in some stock room for about a decade until it melts and gets thrown away, okay? Until whoever runs the store gives up and just tosses it in the trash. You're never gonna get that money back, okay? Not gonna happen. So the movie opens to empty theaters. People like literally had fun going to movie theater sites and looking up what seats were reserved and checking out to see it. That none of them, no seats, 0 seats, okay? Negative seats, empty movie halls. The only people at the movies were either crazy people who support this movie for ideological reasons, some of which literally went to see it multiple times, again and again and again, and the majority of people at the movie theater were people who wanted to see how bad it is and take pictures of how empty the movie theater is. Just picture after picture of abandoned movie theaters. So what happened next? Let's talk money, okay? Let's move on to how much this movie actually made. Not enough, just not enough, okay? They tried everything. First of all, they opened early at overseas markets. This is something that Marvel does sometimes to build up a hype. It works for Marvel, but it was done for a completely different reason here, okay? To prop up the numbers, okay? It's being done so they can lop in the opening weekend numbers with the overseas numbers and make it look like it had a good first weekend. Usually the opening weekend numbers are completely domestic. It's all USA, but they opened early in several other places. Then they added the entire week and a half it was playing there to the opening weekend stats to make it look like this movie had a good opening weekend, but it didn't. It didn't. It opened against no other big movies and still lost to Secret Life of Pets, a movie no one cares about. And when it was going down, Secret Life of Pets was taking its place as number 2. Like, it was crashing, and Secret Life of Pets was still doing well in the theaters. Whoever made that movie must be thanking his lucky stars that Ghostbusters was such a shit show and made his movie shine. But so basically what happens then? The headlines just desperately trying to sort of gerrymander a positive sort of outlook on this. Like, any sort of obscure statistic they can pull out their ass to make this movie look like a success, they pulled it out, okay? They tried to say that it had a big opening weekend. It didn't, not for compared to the expectations. They tried to say it was biggest comedy that Paul Feig has made, or that one of the girls has made, which I don't think is actually true. And even if it was, he had like, what, 5 times the budget this time, so it should have been a lot more successful. Like, it was slightly better than all of his other movies, just slightly, but had like so much more money. It's not a good headline. They also tried to say that was the biggest comedy movie opening since some random movie at the earliest convenience. Basically, they went back and found the biggest opening closest to it. Just went back a few years and picked a random number. It's not like the biggest comedy opening in a decade. It's just, hey, 4 years ago there was another big comedy movie and we were sort of close to, actually not even close. That movie had, what, 1/10 of the budget and still made more money than Fembusters on opening weekend. I don't even remember the movie, and it lost to it. It was completely trampled by it if you look at it logically. So what else happens? It's banned in China. China only accepts, like, first of all, it's the second biggest international market. Studios are desperate to get their movies into China, which isn't easy because China only allows like 36 Western movies into their cinemas a year. And you know what they don't allow? Movies about ghosts. They don't like ghosts over there. They just so immediately they lose any chance of making money at the second biggest market. Okay, it's USA, then China, then everyone else. China's gone. It's now working in America. So what happens next? Second weekend drop. It had over 50% second weekend drop. I mean, that's not huge, but it's big. It's a big drop. Then there's also the issue that comedy movies don't translate. They don't do well overseas. And Ghostbusters isn't as big of a phenomenon overseas as it is here in the USA. I mean, I don't live in the USA, but in the USA it's a huge deal, and overseas it just isn't. So of course when it starts going to international markets, to international theaters, it's not going very well. It doesn't save this movie, okay? They hoped people would go see it overseas. They didn't. Simply did not. Let's look at the numbers a little more. Its percentage of the total gross in the opening weekend isn't that bad, okay? It's not good, but it's not bad. Like, it was what, like 40%? Good movies are 30% and lower. Like, the opening weekend is about 30% for a really good movie, and for Ghostbusters it was closer to 40. So what else? The drop-off rate. The drop-off rate at the third weekend was pretty big. I mean, statistically it was low, but numerically it was big. The drop-off rate is what happens on the third week. See, movie theaters are only forced to show a movie for 2 weeks. They're obligated to show a movie for 2 weeks, and then they can decide if they want to keep it on or not. And if it's doing well, they will, and if it's not, they'll play something else instead, because they get some of the profits that the movie makes. So on the third week, when people can finally drop the movie, in percentages they didn't lose that many theaters, but in numbers they lost over 900, which is a pretty big number. You don't just lose 900 theaters on your third weekend. It doesn't happen that often. It's a big number. Then you have to look at the foreign domestic split, which is like, what, I think 30 to 70? I mean, let me explain. Good movies have a good foreign domestic split, okay? When a movie does well in the United States, then overseas people see it and the hype just keeps growing. And when it opens in foreign markets, the foreign markets dominate. You get like 30% of the movie, the money the movie makes is made in the USA, and 70% in overseas markets. And the worse the movie is, the more that number flips. And that number flipped completely for Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters, okay? It's 30-70, like about 30-70. 30% overseas, 70% domestic. Like, it came out in the States and then it got no hype. It got the opposite of hype, and people overseas just went, I don't want to see it. After a week of hearing how bad it is, they just went, fuck this movie, I'm not gonna watch it. I mean, at my local theater, it was gone after 2 weeks. 2 weeks and it was gone. You know what was still there for like a month and a half? The Secret Life of Pets. That was still being shown long after, I think it still is, long after Ghostbusters has left the building. So let's talk numbers a little more. The budget after rebate and tax cuts was 145. It's hard to tell how much of that is. I mean, there was $10 million in rebate and tax breaks, and you can't tell how much of that they actually kept for themselves. Like it's how much money they make out of rebate. It's not sure, but there was a lot of rebate here. Basically, the movie tickets were packaged with anything. Movie tickets with the video game, which by the way also failed. Movie tickets with the with Rice Krispies. Movie tickets with anything. Just take the movie, pay for it in advance, and decide later if you want to go or not. Just let us keep your money, because once the movie is out, you won't want to buy a ticket. And so it gets 145 in budget in millions. It halfway through gets 10 millions of that cut. I mean, it gets cut from 155 to 145, and it pays about 100 million in publicity. And generally, people aren't sure how much money was actually put into this movie. I mean, 145 plus 100 in publicity, that's 245. And there are of course other expenses. Some reporters said that the total amount was 350 in millions, and then Sony countered saying it was only 3. But the actual number is supposed to be a closely guarded secret. And Paul Feig actually blurted out that to be profitable, the movie would have to make $500,000. So I mean, it's hard to tell what he means by that, but that's a stupid thing to say. And you have to remember that movie theaters are, I mean, it's not an exact number, but generally speaking, they get 45% of the take, okay? So, I mean, 500 million of what? 500 million in general? Or 500 million as in 1 billion, because like 45% of that already goes back to the theaters. How much money does this movie actually have to make? I mean, will never make. No chance. And I mean, I read some news reports saying that it's looking at 70 million in losses, and I'm just not seeing it, because I can't figure out who did the math or how, but none of the published numbers add up to that. Like, it's a lot more than 70 million. A lot more than 70 million. I mean at least 100 million, at least. I mean, I'd have to redo the math. I know it's simple math, but I'm not going to do it in the middle of recording, but 70 million is not even close. So what else is the problem here? As much as it lost more, because you have to remember that this was supposed to be at least a tentpole movie. What's a tentpole movie? The movie of the year, the thing that the studio is banking on, what they think is going to be the big hit of the year, and they build the entire fucking budget around it. I mean, movies that are coming out after this were budgeted using expectations for this movie's success. Their budget is already based on the money that this movie was supposed to make. I mean, they were like, yeah, Ghostbusters is gonna make like 400 million. We can give 50 million of that to this movie and 50 million of that to that movie, and we got a budget. Now there's gonna have to be a lot of cutbacks. What else? Investors. The investors are mad. I mean, people put their money into this and they were expecting a return, not to break even, definitely not to lose money, and they're screwed. And this is gonna make them lose a lot of faith in the company. I mean, they're gonna be a lot more hesitant regarding the next project Sony puts out. So not only did this movie lose the money that was put into it, it actually had some sort of long-term effect, like actually damaging the studio for what, another 6 months, I think. I mean, I'm just throwing out a number. That's what I think. I mean, they would have to get a major hit to recoup the losses of this movie and to sort of build back some of the trust with investors. They royally screwed themselves up with this movie. They fucked themselves over. So what else? Critics. So the dust settles. I mean, the dust doesn't settle, but the movie comes out and it's time to hear criticism. And at this point you have 3 types of critics. The first critic is people who don't care about the movie in reality. They just they care for it politically. So you get a bunch of really glowing reviews, just slathering all over this movie by people who from the get-go, from the onset, said I'm gonna like this movie no matter what. I'm gonna promote this movie no matter what, even if it's shit. It promotes my ideals. It's a feminist movie, so I'm gonna say it's great. I'm just gonna try to, I mean, it wasn't really even a review. It was an advertisement. They were trying to get butts and seats. They were desperate to make this movie succeed so they can say, hey, look at you nerds, look at that, we won. And they didn't win. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be a fight, but if it was a fight, they got fucking massacred and their corpses were raped, basically. I mean, so I'm sorry for the strong language. Their corpses were sexually assaulted. Let's not trigger anyone. So what's the other type of critic? People who hate feminists. I mean, there were the people who were going to love this movie no matter what from the get-go, and there were the people who were going to hate it. But the problem with these people is that they all think themselves to be some sort of intellectuals, skeptics. So at this point, they all start second guessing themselves. I mean, they all just went, listen, I'm a rational, intellectual person. That's why I sit at home all day, wearing a fedora, letting my body just be completely destroyed by Mountain Dew. And that's why I don't like feminism, but I'm gonna give this movie a fair shot. I mean, I know I've been talking shit about it for months now, even without seeing it, but I'm gonna give this a fair take. I'm gonna be fair to this movie. And when the movie came out and it was shit, they thought to themselves, well, I mean, if I say that this movie is bad, everyone is gonna think that I'm biased, because I am biased. So they began sort of second guessing themselves and trying to resolve this cognitive dissonance by going, the movie was okay. I mean, they couldn't say the movie was good because 1, it wasn't good, and B, they would never say that this movie is good. But secondly, they couldn't say that it was bad. They couldn't say it was awful, because then everyone would say, hey, we knew you were gonna say it was awful. You hate it because you hate feminists. So all the sort of anti-feminist nerds went, yeah, this movie was okay. It was fine. It wasn't so good. It wasn't so bad. It was alright. It was okay. So who else? The third type of reviews came from the regular people, the people who review movies all the time. And what are they gonna say? I mean, they can't call it bad, and they can't call it good because they can't take sides. Whoever they pick, someone's gonna accuse them of taking a side. They're gonna accuse themselves of taking a side. They probably are taking a side, and they also don't want to sort of reveal that. So all the big YouTube critics, all the people who were unbiased, also went, it was so-so, it was okay, which also didn't really do the movie any favors, because nowadays, okay is bad, average is awful, 5 out of 10 is a fucking failure, 7 out of 10 is, okay, maybe if you have some disposable income, okay? So that's the reviews. What's my review about this movie? It was shit. It was awful. I mean, it wasn't a so bad it's good sort of awful, and it wasn't a college student trying to make a movie for his final project awful. It was a big budget movie, but it was sort of Pixels awful. It was essentially as bad as Pixels, almost as bad, a little bit worse, not as bad. It's hard to say, but what isn't hard to say is that when I go to Movie Mojo and look at similar movies, it suggests Pixels. I mean, that's the first suggestion that comes up. Like, the site calculates numbers and goes, this movie is basically Pixels. This is an Adam Sandler movie with vaginas. Okay, this is what this movie is. So what did I think of the movie? Basically all the criticism that everyone else had. I mean, all the regular reviewers, you can see them struggling to say something nice. I mean, you can see, just watch any big YouTube reviewer, listen to the review, and just, you can hear them go, this was bad, this was bad, this was awful, this was shit. Final score, it was okay, 5 out of 10, not so bad, even though they couldn't find a single good thing to say about it. So my criticism was the same. The CGI was bad, the humor was unfunny and childish, the acting was bad, half of the jokes were this bad ad-libbing shit, like shit you see at a Seth Rogen movie, not good stuff, not at all. And what else? Because of the ad-libbing, Kate McKinnon sort of got to quote-unquote shine. People liked her performance, but I didn't, because you can sort of tell none of those lines were written for her. I mean, nothing was written. It's all, no one else in the cast reacts to what she says. She was basically talking to herself. That character had no interaction with anyone else, almost ever. The only lines where she does talk to other characters, it's stiff and robotic. Like, when she's not just acting like an idiot for her own entertainment, it's not fun to watch, and it isn't good. The script was bad, and when she was having fun, it was nice to watch, but generally speaking, it was bad. Leslie Jones was okay, which was surprising. I mean, I still laughed when people trolled her on Twitter, but out of everyone in that movie, she was the only one sort of trying to act, at least putting some effort into it. What else? They should have actually written the script. The bad guy he has no motivation. No one knows who he is, what he does, why he's doing it. He's just, half the plot makes no sense. The climax is nonsensical. The cameos make no sense, by the way. I read an article with someone who worked on the movie, don't remember who it is, and he said, like, he's proud of this, that the cameos had no rules. That's what he said. We had no rules regarding cameos, but it shows. I mean, that's not a good thing. You can see that the cameos are completely random. Like, they make no sense. The entire movie, and especially the cameos, look like Paul Feig didn't like Ghostbusters. He watched it once so that he can have cameos. Just sort of dozed off halfway through. Didn't really pay attention, and then he went, "Okay, I'm ready." He was like me in school, trying to read the material that there was about to be a test on 5 minutes before the test. Like, I didn't do my homework, I didn't pay attention in class, and 5 minutes before the test starts, I just frantically read everything, or lazily read everything, and just kind of try to go by memory and try to sort of get a passing grade. That's how this movie was made in regards to the original. He didn't like Ghostbusters, he didn't give a shit about Ghostbusters, and that's why the cameos are just, hey, that actor was in there, and that line, someone said that line, so let's just throw it in the script anywhere. But I want to stress one thing. This is not all Paul Feig's fault. See, the reason this isn't all Paul Feig's fault is that you can sort of see that this movie was butchered at the editing room, just completely destroyed. I mean, let me explain to you how these things happen. When a movie is doing bad, when a movie's projections are doing bad, when the crowd is unreceptive to the trailers, when the studio thinks it's about to lose money, they go into an editing frenzy. They call in focus groups, which are supposed to give complex opinions numerically. They give them sort of a little box with buttons on it, and they're supposed to click when they're watching the movie. If they like something, they click a 10, and if they dislike it, they click a 1. And then they try to sort of extrapolate from that what's good and what's bad in the movie, and it doesn't work. So a bunch of soulless studio people who had no vision for this movie just start going at this film with a hacksaw, with like hedge clippers, just cutting things out, hoping that they'll somehow create a version that will resonate with people. This is what happened with Suicide Squad, where when people wanted the Joker to be more mysterious, so the studio cut, based on what a focus group said, they cut almost everything that the Joker had to do with this movie. And then when the movie came out, everyone went, why isn't the Joker in this? Why does he have like 7 minutes of screen time? So basically what happened at the editing room. And then when this still didn't work, when they realized they're going to lose even more money, they went for a second round of cuts, because what do you do when a movie's about to fail? You cut out as much of it as you can, because if a movie is short, you can screen it more times. You can play it in the theaters over and over and over. A 3-hour movie will play in theaters half the number of times a day that an hour-and-a-half movie does. So if you have no faith in your movie, cut out an hour and a half. The original cut was reportedly over 4 hours long. I mean, 5 went crazy here. 4 fucking hours of this crap. But it shows. It shows that someone who didn't give a shit about this movie just butchered the shit out of it. I mean, there's a joke in one of the trailers that's supposed to be a running gag, and then when the joke happens again in the movie, it doesn't make any sense because the first joke was cut out. There's supposed to be this is basic plot writing. This is the most formulaic script, the most formulaic thing you can do in a script, where there's some sort of conflict with the two main characters that re-emerges near the end and then disappears again because they become friends again. And this happens in this movie because really early in the movie, what's her name? Kristen Wiig says to, I remember the name, Melissa McCarthy says to Kristen Wiig, "Hey, you abandoned me." And that was supposed to be like a big thing. And right at the end of the movie, Kristen Wiig saves her and she goes, "I'll never abandon you again." That's supposed to be a big moment, but it isn't, because it's obvious they cut out the part where she abandons her again. That was supposed to be brought up again, and it's a typical, a completely basic plot structure. There's a problem, they become friends, the problem re-emerges, the problem is solved at the climax of the third act, and then they become friends again, and it's rainbows in the sky and it's all good. And they missed the middle part. They cut out the entire middle part. They obviously cut out all of the motivations of the villain. There's a moment where what's his name, Kevin, the secretary, is possessed by Rowan, but he shows up wearing a Ghostbusters suit and he goes, "Hey, I want to be a Ghostbuster. There's nothing you can ever say that'll stop me. This is my destiny." And you can really tell that there was supposed to be some sort of conflict between them and Kevin, where he decides to be one of the Ghostbusters and they tell him, "No, you can't, because you're too dumb." And that brings me to another point. I'm sure that scene happened. I didn't see it, but I'm sure it happened because that's the only way his lines make sense. And I'm 100% sure that scene was basically him being a big, stupid, entitled man and crouching on a woman's safe space, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, that's definitely a scene that happened. There was a point in that movie that was supposed to happen where Kevin just goes, "Hey, I'm a man. You should listen to my opinions. I'll be a Ghostbuster and I'll run the show." And the studio just cut it out, and it just left you with a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense. And why do I want to bring this up right at the end? Because another thing that was probably cut out of the movie, and we won't know until the DVD comes out, until the director's cut comes out. But if that did happen, then Sony did make the right choice here, and I think it did happen. A lot of people said there was man-hating in this movie. I didn't see it, but there probably should have been. I mean, there was probably supposed to be a lot of jokes about how men are bad, and Sony probably just dumped all that in the trash. Like, people said that all the male characters were stupid, but I thought that all the characters were stupid. Every single one of them is the same character, same person, all of them dumb. But I mean, let's talk about Feige for a minute. He hates himself, he hates men, he probably has some sort of fetish for this. I mean, there's so many pictures of him humiliating himself for women, having women humiliate him, having women step on him, having women laugh at him. I mean, I'm 100% sure that Paul Feig goes to anonymous image boards, posts his tiny dick, and begs people to laugh at him, to insult how small his penis is, and then cries and jerks off. That's probably his fetish. I'm 100% sure of that, 100%. Like, I mean, let's just get to the point. This movie was bad. It was a failure. It was a shit show. And I really hope everyone involved permanently fucks up their career.